social distancing, you say? The future is watching. Welcome to Opcode Virtual Summit.
Okay, perfect. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be here today, and thanks to Matt for organizing such kind of virtual conference today. So what I will talk today is about information sharing, and what we have been doing for the past 8 years is basically doing information sharing. And it started as a very small things, and we basically evolved into something that is much bigger nowadays. So I will basically talk about what we did as MIST project, and what was successful, and especially the pitfalls and the mistake we did. Because I think the best thing to learn, I think, from information sharing communities is to know how they work, and basically based on that, you can build your own communities. So I'm one of the core members of the MIST project. So I will not go into detail about the MIST project itself, but I'll talk more about all those sharing communities and how sharing is really saving us nowadays. So there's a bright side of information sharing communities. So for the past year as Circle, we built a lot of sharing communities. We basically build sharing communities for us. We basically build sharing communities for other organizations. And we had some successful things. So we, for example, have one of our biggest communities is basically more than 1,500 organizations and more than 4,000 users that are basically actively doing sharing of information. So they basically share indicators, trade actor information, and trade intelligence. We have some sharing communities where people are basically sharing financial indicators and even trade and so on. And it's really acting as both ways. So people are sharing actively things that they have seen, but they are even confirming, or for example, doing sightings of the information itself. So for doing that, we really act on two things. One is basically the tooling. So MISP is the platform that we develop and maintain. So it's basically a full-time job within the teams where we basically develop and maintain the software. It's an open source trade sharing platform. It will remain open source. It will be always open source. That's really a key point for us for having something that is basically auditable and usable by everyone. But besides the tool itself, you have a lot of practices and things about how to build those sharing communities. Things about the structurations and the structure of information, like the standard format and so on, and classifications, contextualization of information. Those one play really an important role. And those practices, I want to talk a bit about those 2 days and a bit some, I would say, good stories of things that really failed and things that were really successful and how we did that. So another question that you might ask is, how can you be successful of building a sharing communities? And to be honest, there is no plan. It was basically a series of mistakes that we did over the past 8 years that help us to build what we did today. So we really built things that are not really with like complex and roadmaps and so on. We were really building and solving problems step by step. And that's really the thing and I think it's part of the success is we basically had an organic growth of the MIST platforms. And all the sharing communities, I mean, the most successful sharing communities that we have seen are basically coming from organic growth. And what I want really to share with you is basically the series of mistakes. And one of the first mistakes that we did was basically, it's where everything started. So at trans-European level, we do what we call those kind of malware work group meetings where we basically discuss about what we are working on. And in 2012, we basically had some really sensitive analysis ongoing in incident response. And we basically, as those kind of physical meeting on a quarterly basis, we basically go there, do presentation of what we are working on, what kind of thing that we are reversing. And we did a presentation with what we were working on, and one of our colleagues from the other countries like look at it and were like, oh, we did exactly the same the past 2 months. And we were like, oh, great. And so we were wasting 2 months of work doing something that was basically exactly the same without sharing. And it's not because we were not willing to share, but it's because we had not the tools to share. And luckily at that time, we had some guys from the Ministry of Defense called Christophe van der Plat that started to do a small platform called SiteDefSeek, which was basically the premises of MISP itself. And what we basically did to say, okay, that day we say, okay, we should use that platforms, make it open source, and use it even internally for all incident response and sharing information. And that's basically everything started. So, and that's where the initial name of MISP started. It started as a malware information sharing platform. But nowadays, I will explain that. We will share. There are a lot of people sharing different kind of informations, so it's not anymore malware. But the thing is, it's really the building of MISP was really based on that, of having contribution from others, feedback from users, and it's no organic growth. So we didn't plan like 2 or 3 or 5 years in advance. We were basically doing the work on a day-to-day basis. And nowadays, a community-driven project, we have more than 400 contributors to the MISP project, people that are doing software development, but other people that are contributing to the galaxies and so on. The MISP project itself is more than 50 repositories in GitHub. So it's a pretty large community. Now the thing is, you have the tools, that's great. But the thing is, how do you succeed to have a sharing communities? And I'll start with one of the things. So when we started to use MISP and develop MISP, it was really for our own needs. But then we were like, okay, we have a platform that we could use for sharing. So why don't we set up a sharing communities for our constituents? So that means members of our CSIRT, and the people could share information. And that's where everything started too. We basically started to use MISP as a sharing tools and as a building a sharing communities. And one of the first problems that we faced was the legal framework. And I think maybe a lot of people here are facing this kind of problems. It's the legal framework. So if you go to the lawyer, so your legal advisor, they might say to you, oh, you cannot share information because you have this legal framework and so on. And what we discover is basically don't be abused by the legal framework. If you really want to build a sharing communities, use the framework itself and start to be clever on that. And that's what we try to do nowadays to help everyone. So for example, on the MISP project webpage, we have a complete set of documents for compliance. So that means you don't have to worry about it. Basically use a legal framework to support your tools and not to basically limit yourself. And that's really one of our experience. So for example, one of the sharing communities that we started with a very legal, complex document of, I think it was 12 pages. And after the second organization joining, they wanted to ask to change the document, and we discovered that it was basically prone to fail. You don't want to do that. So what we decided to do is basically to get rid completely of the legal framework, because what we wanted to say is basically the legal framework already exists. You don't need to have an additional contract and so on. And one of our success for one of the sharing communities, basically, it's very lax on the legal side, but a lot of people are still contributing and so on. So that's something to keep in mind. If you want to build your sharing communities, don't be afraid to basically play with the legal framework. Basically, every one of us are basically hackers, so don't hesitate to hack the legal frameworks. That might help you at the end. Another thing that is quite interesting is basically leading by example. So if you start sharing communities and you start a MISP instance, a lot of organizations start like that. They start an instance without any information inside. And then you have people that are basically looking at the information and there's nothing. So no one is contributing. And that's basically where it's starting. You need to feed the machines. You need to feed the system with data. And that's the interesting part. Humans tend to imitate. If you start to create information, so event in MISP, with threat intelligence, context, information, and so on, you start to see other people imitating what you are doing. And that's really the thing that you need to do, is basically to feed the system. If you feed your system on a day-to-day basis, you basically get new information. And the thing that we have seen is basically more you contextualize information, more people can use it. For example, some of the MISP community that we were running some like 7 years ago had really little context. It was just barely a list of indicators and so on. Nowadays, you have full-blown attack trees. You basically have information about the threat actors. You basically have intelligence regarding to the threat actors and so on. So it's really something that you need to consider. Another thing that we have seen is don't be afraid of sharing or you reach your goal. So for example, if you have you share an event with, for example, extraction of configuration from a malware, don't just put the extracted configuration of the malware, add the tooling for supporting the extractions. And you'll see that by doing that, you basically increase the capabilities of the other in the group. And a good example we had recently, I would say a very nasty malware where it's a lot of obfuscations, and it was really difficult to basically get the encryption string. And one of the contributors found a way to do it. And he started to contribute the tools. And afterwards, you see the next days, people starting to contributing more keys from other malwares and so on, because they discover all the guys was doing it and they increase their capabilities. So don't hesitate to basically share not only the result, but how you reach your result, the tooling, the processes, and so on. And that's really a way to basically build your sharing communities. And that's the same for some sharing communities that are like in the scientific area or even in the health sector for COVID and so on. If people show how to, for example, do analysis of data and so on, people are trying to reproduce the things, to validate the data and stuff like that. So it's really important on a day-to-day basis. Another thing that we have seen is we have seen some sharing communities that force you to share information. And that's basically one of the biggest failures that you can see. Because when you do that, people try to feed information into the systems to basically share such kind of information. So for example, to keep and to remain in the system, they were like sharing information they collect from the internet. So the quality of information must go down just to remain on the systems. And if you think about it, basically having just people at least using the data, it's already a quick win for a sharing communities. So that's super important. When you basically share information, that you think about people using your data. And what we have seen is a lot of communities, if you reach a successful sharing communities, around 30% of people are actively sharing data. The rest are basically using the data. And it's already a quick win. I mean, if you look at some of the projects like Wikipedia and so on, the number of contributors is below 1%. If you have a sharing communities in cybersecurity where you have 30% people contributing, it's more than a success. And that's something that you really want to keep. Is basically to be very welcoming into a communities, because what we tend to say is the leader of today might be the contributor of tomorrow. So don't hesitate to have people that are basically only leeching the data and using it, because 1 year later, they might become the biggest contributor to the platforms. So that's something to keep in mind when you have sharing communities. Another thing that is very important is contextualizations. So in MISP, we have what we call galaxies. So galaxies are basically custom set of knowledge base, but you can basically construct your own classification and so on. And in MISP, we come with a pre-built list of galaxies. Those galaxies help you to basically attach information. For example, if you have, for example, an event related to Subnet or SOFACI, you can basically attach all the information related to SOFACI directly. So that's something that you have to really keep in mind. When you add context, it's helping people to use the data, not only to basically do for detections, but it's helping them to know the technique of the attackers, to filter out the data, to see what is interesting for them and so on. As an example, we are operating a MISP sharing communities for COVID. And in that community, we share 3 kinds of information. We share health information, cybersecurity, and nowadays disinformation. And all this information is there, but we add context, so like that people can cherry pick, filter around, and use the data for their own use. So for example, we have a huge list of threat actors. So I think we maintain one of the biggest lists nowadays of threat actors. We maintain synonyms. So you know how painful it is to maintain such kind of thing, but it's, I think, helping people to basically at least name things in the right way, and that is in the similar way. We have a very huge list, for example, for ransomware, including a lot of meta informations, like, for example, extension files, the ransom notes, the kind of encryption they use, and so on. So like that, you can really document when you find a case to see if it's a known ransomware, to see if you can decrypt it or not, if it's a known technique, if it's similar to some other ransomware. So you might find, for example, similarities in ransom notes and so on. We have some other for exploit kit and so on. But you can describe plenty of other things. For example, we have one for preventive actions. So not only to share information about detections, you could share information about the preventive measures that you can basically have. So for example, if you have a specific ransomware, you can have, for example, some preventive measure regarding backups or kind of backup that you need to basically operate to avoid such kind of malware, or at least limit the impact. we basically import existing classification schemes. So for example, my tray attack models is basically imported into MISP as a galaxy. But we have plenty of others, like for example, the misinformation patterns, which is the Amit one, which is there to describe informations like misinformation, fake news, and so on directly into MISP. And what we try to do is in MISP, people can basically extend the software without having to understand the software behind. So they can basically build their own knowledge base behind. So it's simple JSON. So if you build a sharing community, that's something that we usually say, that don't force yourself to use one standard. If you are, I think, a large community and you really feel better, do it. In MISP, it's possible. We have galaxies and taxonomies for that. You can basically extend it, and you can share it back. Either you share it back, or you keep it for yourself. For example, we have a lot of military organizations that are using MISP. Obviously, they don't share back the information about the threat actor and the classifications, but they use a standard format for them to basically extend MISP and support their different use cases. And if you have some other idea of galaxies and so on, you are more than welcome. You can do a pull request. Nowadays, we have around 30 types of galaxies. But if you want to extend it, just propose one. If you don't know how to do it, just contact us and we can even help you to do that. So as an example of sharing communities, we operate right now. Just after COVID started, we were like, okay, we have the MISP software and we want to share information about it. Because we have seen a lot of overlap, and I think that is quite interesting. It's something that's basically overlap between different sectors because people will abuse the COVID situations to basically make phishing, make spear phishing, specific attacks and stuff like that. So we wanted to have really a sharing community that is specific to such kind of use case. So nowadays we basically share two main areas, so medical and cyber threat. Recently we introduced misinformations thanks to CockSec for importing this kind of data there. If you want to join, you are more than welcome. You can go to the web page mentioned there. There's a self-registration process and you can register. There are already close to 1,000 users there. People are actively using. You have Isaac in the medical sectors, you have others. We try to basically keep track of various things, like for example, specific malicious domains that are used for trapping users. But on the other hand, we maintain list of legitimate COVID websites too. So like that to avoid false positive into a system and so on. And I think so when we started to do this, why we do that? I mean, for us, it's like we have interest at personal level, not only at professional level. So if as an organization or as a group of people, you want to start your own community, do it. It's basically a very low entry barrier to do it. The software is open source, so you can really run your sharing communities. And we have seen organizations that are basically starting in a day sharing communities. And they start slowly by importing different data sets and so on, and they start to have this kind of community, and then the traction is starting. Another thing that we have seen, and that's something that is quite interesting too, a lot of information that we have seen are sometimes shared into kind of silo of information. And that's kind of a pity because a lot of information can basically overlap. So for example, we have seen in the financial sectors, some overlap with some cybersecurity related cases, for example, for cash out of money. So for example, some banking or some mule networks are basically used by different kind of criminals, not only cyber criminals, but some more classical financial criminals. And they basically use the same networks. And if you don't share the information between those two kind of sector of activities, you don't see the overlap. And that's why we try to basically have some kind of sharing communities where you basically have different kind of sectors together. And when you start to see the correlation between the data set, you start to see like interesting trend of things like, okay, those kind of criminals are maybe using the same kind of techniques or the same infrastructures for supporting their activities. So that's something to keep in mind. So thing that we try to do in MISP, and that's coming from our experience. From the early beginning of MISP, we had this kind of mindset where we say, okay, maybe we should not bound ourselves to a specific standard. And we came with this model in MISP where you can basically template your object models. So for the ones that are familiar to network security and network monitoring, it's close to very similar to the network protocol called NetFlow, where you basically define templates where you can define your own template to share information. And that's basically what we do in MISP. So when we started, for example, the COVID-19 MISP communities, we wanted to create objects related to COVID-19, obviously. So we basically take a template, and it's a JSON file, so you can basically extend it. So with MISP, you can really create your own object. We have around 250 objects nowadays, templates, but you can create your own template. In this case, we created the template based on the Johns Hopkins dataset. And those templates are basically just describing the number of infections, deaths, and recovered from a specific region. And that took like 5 minutes when you know to do the JSON files. And that's basically the thing that we try to do. In information sharing, we try to be basically not bound to standard, but to be basically bound to your use case. So if you have a specific use case to describe, as long as the format is basically very flexible, you can do it out of the box. And that's really what we want to do in MISP. And thanks to this kind of models, you can really build your own communities. And what we have seen is, over the past years, we have seen a huge number of new communities popping up. And I just want to talk about some that you have seen. So for example, obviously, our field of activities is CSIRT, so Incident Response Team, CERT. So initially, the first major user of MISP were basically cybersecurity related, CSIRT, Security Operations Center, and so on. So that's quite interesting there because you see that people were like focusing on cybersecurity. And I mean, it's not a secret. Circle is located in Luxembourg. In Luxembourg, the financial sector is taking like an important place. And we have seen a huge interest in the financial sector to start to build sharing communities too. So again, and that's where we started with those kind of flexible model of data modeling. We say, okay, maybe for financial fraud, we should use the same platforms, but be flexible on the data set. And then we have seen a lot of new specific sharing communities popping up. So we are part of some, but some of them are basically completely standalone and independent. Something to really keep in mind with MISP, when you start a MISP instance and you start to use it, you basically build the sharing communities. And it's up to you to decide if it's a private one, it's a private club, or is it something that you basically want to bridge with others or to share with a specific community, a specific region, and so on. And that's really important. When you basically create a MISP instance, you have to define yourself what you want to do with it. So, for example, a lot of organizations that are building private one are only, for example, using it for sharing within different teams. So, for example, they have a SOC team, they have a threat intelligence teams. They basically use MISP to share between two teams. So the tool itself is there to facilitate the sharing of information, structured information sharings. We know how painful it is to basically deal with emails containing IOCs, indicators, threat intelligence is super painful. You really don't want to do that. You really want to automate, to do correlation automatically, and so on. So when we started to introduce this kind of model in MISP of being able to basically change the data structures, we have seen plenty of other organizations starting their own models. And I can discuss about some that are public. For example, some border control organizations and agencies are using MISP to share information. For example, I've seen a very interesting use case. So it's a country. They basically have different points where they do seizing of goods crossing the borders. And they have these classical problems when they seize goods. They don't exactly know if the goods is for example, on a blacklist or is something that is illegal and so on, because they need experts to validate. So for example, there's those kind of chemical components that sometimes are illegal because they might be used for doing drugs and so on. So what they do, they use MISP to store information about what they seized, like pictures, details about labels on the chemicals and so on. And then you have experts within their field that are connecting to MISP and reviewing the seizing and seeing, okay, this one is maybe something that is obviously dangerous and illicit, or is not. And that's quite interesting that we have seen that such kind of organization just basically using the tools for their own use case, and they just basically revamp it to support their use case. Another interesting use case that we have seen is the vulnerability disclosure process, and I think it's interesting because you have a roundtable about it. A lot of vulnerability disclosure is basically pre-notifications, like all those embargo vulnerabilities. So we have seen people that are basically using MISP to distribute pre-embargo information to very sensitive customers. So for example, we have seen a large organization that are fixing bugs into hardware equipment. And the lifetime for vulnerability in hardware equipment and the time that is basically fixed, it's very long compared to just pure software. And what they were doing is basically they still want to disclose this vulnerability to their main customers before that is really fixed. So they basically use MISP as a sharing platform to share this kind of pre-notification vulnerabilities. So it's a way to engage with their customers directly and to have a kind of safe way to share information. And then the customer can even basically improve the vulnerability disclosure process and improve there. And then you have plenty of very, I would say, funky use case or exotic use case, especially in the intelligence communities. I've seen one from a country where basically they use it to share their signal interceptions report through MISP. So they basically review signal interception through MISP, so like that they can do collaborative work on it. So it's quite interesting. So it's basically just private between them, but it's a way to basically exchange information. So the thing is, if you start using MISP, there's an easy way to do it. You basically download the virtual machines of a MISP instance. You basically start play with it. Another option, you basically ask to join one of the MISP communities. On the MISP website, you see you have already some public communities, and you can start your own, basically have your own feeling of all the communities working and how people are sharing information. So that's something that people can basically do. So the thing that is interesting too is you see that the tool is basically so flexible that people can really change it for their own needs. And for us, it's really interesting to see what can benefit for the community. So if you do changes that you think that is interesting for the whole community, don't hesitate to come back to us. And we are really open for integration of new functionality into MISP. So for example, the complete new dashboard functionalities came due to COVID-19. So between brackets, I would say thanks to COVID-19 for that, because we were able to basically starting to have those kind of dashboard for this use case. And then this use case apply at the end for all trade intelligence. So we basically now have dashboard for all trade intelligence information and so on. So that's basically the thing behind. So that's basically the thing. So you have a lot of sharing communities. We know that more than 60,000 organizations are using MISP worldwide. Some are basically completely private. Don't hesitate to ask maybe existing member of communities to connect to their MISP. It's super easy to do synchronizations. So for example, to synchronize between two MISP is just a matter of configuration of 1 or 2 minutes. So for the one that ever use Taxi, for example, they will see the difference. It's super easy. And really, I want to conclude on that. So the project started as really a specific use case in cybersecurity. And today is basically a versatile project that you can use for a lot of things. And we even split the project now in 2 parts. You have the software itself with all the communities and so on, and especially the software backend, the knowledge base and so on. And even the format is now standard by itself. So like that, if you build tools, so for example, if you're using tools for incident response, CM and so on, you can go to the MISP standard website, look at the format and all to do integration with tools. We have plenty of already existing tool set are integrating. I mean, a lot of tools are integrating with MISP, open source tools, but proprietary tools, some cloud services are integrating with MISP. So that's very versatile too. So if you're interested into contributing to the project, don't hesitate to go on GitHub. I think you have a lot of repository where people can contribute. Don't hesitate to ask questions. So we are super open regarding questions. So you can contact us by emails. If you want to follow up what we are doing on Twitter, go on the MISP project Twitter account. And really, if you want to test and do a dry test, you have a MISP virtual machine. You can just download it and test it. And I want to conclude on that, if you want to build your sharing communities for a specific use case and you don't know where to start, don't hesitate to send us an emails. We are there to help. For us, really, the key point is not really the software itself and so on, but the key point is that people are sharing more to help the others. And that's really what we could help everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. While we're waiting for some questions from the chat, like congratulations for the great work and for MISP. Like you said, like it's pretty cool to see like how it had been used for like various projects now. And actually 2 weeks ago we had SJ to talk about the disinformation and the AMIT framework that they have been designing. And also they mention how it's being integrated in MISP now.
Yeah, the work they did is super cool because it's basically really reusing the building block of MISP to build something completely new for disinformations. That's really great.
Yeah, which is exactly like you said, right? Initially it was just for like software security, but threat intelligence is more than just like software security.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. In the chat, we have Veronique who says that you have a great accent, easy to understand.
Yes, I think for Veronique it's easier when you are French speaking to understand the French accent, for sure.
And yeah, do you guys have any question for Alex while he's here? And how automation are used in MISP setups?
It's a good one. Yeah, it's a very good one. MISP, and that's something that we really, from the early beginning of MISP, we really want that people can use the dataset. So we have a REST search API where you can query anything you want in MISP and output in different formats. So it's pretty flexible. So you can output in JSON, CSV. You can generate, for example, Suricata, Bro rules, or Zeek rules directly from MISP. You can export like CSV and stuff like that, which make a lot of sense. But we have other integration scheme. We have real-time streaming too. So we basically have a 0MQ and a Kafka output in MISP. So you can basically integrate MISP to a real-time feed. There's a very good example from CERN in Geneva, where they basically built a complete stream of data, where they basically use MISP as a threat intelligence platform, and every data coming in is basically feeding all their systems, CM and so on. So for automation, you have different way of doing it. You can do push of data through API, that's a classical way of doing it, but you have integration of the 0MQ and so on to have real-time feed of data. Some vendors are integrating MISP by default. So for example, if you look at Splunk, for example, they have an app which is developed by another open source contributor, which is really cool. For some other vendors, you basically have built-in MISP integrations. So we are always eager to know about automations. If you look on the tools page of MISP project, you have a list of all automation aspects. So feel free to have a look at this. If something is missing or you know about new integration, just tell us and we can have a look at it.
Cool. Another question is MISP and Yeti.
That's a good one. And that's really as an open source project, we think that diversity is super important in the open source community. And we know people that are basically using MISP and Yeti together. For example, they use Yeti for more an analyst perspective, where the analyst is working for doing threat intelligence, and they interconnect it with MISP to do the sharing, for example. So for us, it's and I think it's the reality of our work. If you look at a SOC nowadays, you have like 25 or even 20 software that are basically connected together, from orchestrations, threat intelligence, and so on. So for us, it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, Yeti, for example, is a very good tool for analysts doing threat intelligence and so on, and interconnecting with MISP make a lot of sense. So that make a lot of sense for using it even in some communities and so on. So and for us, it's really important too. For example, with MISP, we have a lot of integration with other tools like the Hive, for example, which is another project for doing threat hunting. So for us, we always prefer to have basically tools that are really focused on doing something very well and with good integration, than having a tool that is basically not doing all the work properly.
Cool. And I guess that's that's it for today. I don't see more questions. Well, thanks again for joining us, Alex, and giving us a good summary of the journey of MISP and how it can also be used like in the future for like different groups. But like you said, open source diversity is very important, and that's something like we need to see more. And well, interoperability also when there is diversity,
Exactly.
A key thing to not forget,
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much.
Cool. Well, thanks.